So welcome everyone. Good day from wherever you are joining us from any corner of the world. We're expecting a very international audience today, so I will not go through the morning, afternoon, evening routine, but nice to have you with us from wherever you are joining us. And welcome to the UNEP Eco-Innovation Supplement for Electronics Business Models, Circularity and Learnings from Developing Countries webinar. We stay together for the next 1.5 hours. Hopefully, we will be here for 1.5 hours. Hopefully, you will stay with us as well for as long. And as the title might suggest, we are here today to have the official launch of a recently published publication by UNEP, the Eco-Innovation Supplement for Electronics. And it's a session where we want to focus on the learnings and lessons coming out of this publication, also together with the experiences of pilot companies being involved in the projects, and of course give everybody the opportunity as well to learn from this publication and see how in your own field, in your own situation and context, you might apply some of the results and findings of this publication. Our aim is, of course, to make this session as interactive as possible. So there is the Q&A available for us to ask questions at any stage. We will have a separate section for taking them up. In case you have specific questions for specific speakers, you can indicate that. Otherwise, we can make it the part of a broader dialogue as well. My name is Emanuele. I'm Communications and Events Manager at the World Resources Forum, which is one of the co-hosts of this webinar together with UNEP. And I will be the moderator of this session today. Today, we will have, just before going quickly to the agenda, we will have different speakers. We have Dr. Sonia Valdivia, Scientific Director of the World Resources Forum, one of the co-authors of the UNEP Innovation Supplement for Electronics. We have Dr. Robert Reinhardt, Sustainable Business and Strategy Consultant at UNEP. And then we will hear the experiences of two pilot companies who have been part of the project and really taken the learnings on the ground. We have Pablo Moreno, Director of Corporate Affairs of MABE, based in Mexico, and then Gonzalo Rubio and Juan Fernando Jaramillo from PC Check from Colombia. First of all, a warm welcome to all of you, Sonia, Robert, and Pablo. Nice to have you with us, and thanks a lot for accepting our invite. We're still waiting for Gonzalo and Juan, but hopefully they will join us on time. So just one quick overview of the agenda for today before actually getting this started. We will have first an introduction by Robert about the global context of the project. So what is this project about? Where is this publication coming from? To put things in the constant context and prepare the ground for the discussion. Then we'll proceed with Sonia Valdivia, who will have a presentation regarding the key findings and lessons learned from the publication. So what really came out of this, what the process was about, and what are insights that could be useful for different stakeholders. We have a very diverse audience today from business, policy, research. So it's important for us to make clear also what the benefits are for these different stakeholder groups. And that's something that Sonia will tackle as well in her presentation. Finally, as mentioned, we will have some experiences on the ground by businesses. So these eco-innovation pilot companies, MABE with Pablo, and then PC Check. Finally, we'll conclude our Q&A and a short look into the future, what's coming after this project, and how you could also be involved in further implementation of activities. Without any further hesitation, I would like now to give the word to Robert. So Robert, please, a short introduction from your side, and then let's dive into the context of the project.
Great. Many thanks, Emanuele, and welcome everyone. I'm just getting my slides up. Is that working well? Can you see my slides?
Perfect.
Brilliant. Well, a warm welcome to everybody, and many thanks for joining us from wherever you're joining us actually today. So I guess might still be quite early in the LAC region. But yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the launch webinar of the Eco-Innovation Electronics Supplement. My name is Robert Reinhardt. I'm working in the Resources and Markets branch within the Industry and Economy division of the United Nations Environment Program. And I'm also part of the GEFSIC project team. And today I would like to give you a brief global overview of the Jeff Psychem project. I will go into details what exactly we mean by Jeff Psychem, in which the eco-innovation electronic supplement was developed in close cooperation with the World Resources Forum Association, namely with Professor Dr. Sonia Valdivia. And yeah, I'm working as a sustainable business and strategy consultant, mainly on topics around electronics and textiles. And without further ado, let us dive right in. So the global project titled, and my apologies for the long name, is the Global Best Practices on Emerging Chemical Policy Issues of Concern under Psychem. Psychem is standing for the Strategic Approach to International Chemicals Management. And this project really focuses on two major emerging policy issues. One of them is being lead in paint, and the other one is chemicals in products. And both of these will have to focus now because they have both generated quite particular environmental and health challenges, as well as negative impacts. And the third component of the project is also that there's a need for knowledge management, information exchange, and a strategic planning that we can really ensure a concerted and coordinated action on all emerging policy issues. The Jeff Psychem project, as we refer to it, started in the year 2019 in January and is actually almost finalizing. So in next month, by June 2023, the project is finalized. And overall, the project has received financing from the GEF, the Global Environment Facility, with a total amount of around $8.2 million. So above all, the project's objective, as you might always say, is really to accelerate the adoption of national and value chain initiatives to control emerging policy issues, so mainly lead and paint and chemicals and products, in order to contribute to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And we also included, or I also included, two icons here. So the link to the relevant Sustainable Development Goal is, first of all, goal number 3, in particular target 3.9, that is aiming really to reduce the number of deaths and illnesses from hazardous chemicals and air, water, and soil pollution, as well as their contamination. And in addition, it's also aiming to contribute to goal number 12, responsible consumption and production, in particular target 12.4, that we're aiming to achieve environmentally sound management of chemicals throughout their entire life cycles. Now let's dive in a bit about the project outcomes and key outputs of this Jeff Psychem project. So maybe to start with, the Eco-Innovation Supplement for Electronics was developed within project component 2. So here, as we can see in the red rectangle, as I might say, on chemicals and products. And this component is really aiming on the life cycle management of chemicals that are present in products. And certainly we are focusing on 3 key sectors: building products, toys, and electronics. And the aim is really to understand how we can minimize the adverse effects of chemicals of concern in these 3 key sectors. And I'm quite sure that many of you are aware, but please allow me to repeat that surely electronics are one of the fastest evolving, most innovative, and highly competitive industries. So therefore, the demands for certain critical resources, they have increased with an ever more complex mix of chemicals of concern. And these are really emerging, and thus we really need to understand how are they causing harmful impacts on human health and the environment. So therefore, this project component 2, chemicals and products, is really aiming to encouraging governments and value chain actors to track and manage their chemicals of concerns, or COCs, as we also relate to them, in their products. One of the key outputs of this component is the development of new tools and guidance to reduce the use of chemicals of concerns in the context of today, the electronics products, as well as providing training and support to government stakeholders and value chain actors that we can really trial and adopt these new guidance and new tools. And certainly, the Eco-Innovation Supplement for Electronics is one of these new tools and guidances that we developed under the component of this chemicals in products outcome of the project. I'd also like to highlight that there's a dedicated website, and I will speak about this in a second in a bit more detail. And surely we will also share the slides afterwards, but I really highly encourage you to please do visit the websites where there's lots of really useful information. And I can also put the link to that website in the chat after my intervention. So a bit of background on the approach that we have been applying in this project. Maybe let's start off that chemicals of concerns. As some of you might already know, they are contained in everyday products, and they can really have harmful impacts on human health and the environment. And this is really due to the fact that these chemicals are being released or can be released at any stage of a product's life cycle. And while the chemical-related impacts can often occur during a product's use or end of life, the decisions that are influencing the product ingredients are really essentially taken further upstream of the value chain. So action to address those chemicals of concerns in those products therefore need to really consider the entire value chain, and impactful interventions that need to be made at upstream stages are quite key, because here we can really aim to protect human health and the environment from additional chemical pollution in the future. And please allow me to highlight one critical point, because this is quite important and relevant for SMEs in the electronics value chain that are mostly found in emerging economies. So these SMEs, and we will hear from some of the SMEs that took part in this project shortly, well, quite soon after our interventions, but they really take part not only the upstream value chain by, for instance, importing parts from the Asian region for the assembly process, but there's also quite a majority of SMEs that are situated at the downstream value chain. And they're really trying to deal with the sustainable management of end-of-life electronics, of the contained chemicals of concerns, but also with the e-waste. So the idea with the approach, what we call the value chain approach at UNEP, is that together with our implementing partners, such as the World Resources Forum Association, that we're really working on guidance, tools, and national pilot projects to support inter alia, so not only the electronics sector, but also the buildings and toys sector, to really find these kind of entry points that can have really critical impacts and positive impacts. And one last point I would like to highlight on this slide is that one of the key tools and guidances, certainly what we have labeled here on the slide, sustainable business, also as we call it, eco-innovation, that certainly the electronics supplement, eco-innovation supplement, was really part of this key tool and guidance. So it's mainly situated right at the upstream value chain that we can see on the slide. And I will also share a few more resources in the chat afterwards, but please allow me also to say that the eco-innovation approach from UNEP really has the idea or the key aim to help especially SMEs in emerging economies to develop, but also to diversify their sustainable business models in order to reduce chemical impacts of their product portfolios along the entire value chain. And just before I'm closing, I would like to highlight the communities of practice. So since the start of the project, so since around the year 2020, in the project, we had established 4 communities of practice. And you see all 4 of them here on the slide. There was one on highly hazardous pesticides, one on lead and paint, another one on chemicals and products, and a 4th one on chemicals and the Sustainable Development Goals. And while the activities of these 4 communities of practice have actually already finished last year by the end of 2022, now the SAICM Secretariat is really continuing a momentum with a single all-inclusive community of practice on chemicals and waste management in close cooperation with the Green Growth Knowledge Partnership. And this community of practice, the chemicals and waste community, this year during 2023 is aiming to host a number of discussions that are related to chemical issues of concern or capacity building activities across diverse supply chains and across diverse sectors in order to really bring together a variety of actors. So not only academics, private sector, but also, for instance, civil society, NGOs, and also policymakers and intergovernmental organizations. And last, I'm really kindly inviting you to all visit our, what we call the SciChem Knowledge Management Platform, which you can see on the slide, scichemknowledge.org. And this is really an up-to-date, let's say, shop, I would almost say, where we have all related topics around SciChem emergent policy issues. So we have recent resources, publications, news and articles, upcoming events, upcoming community events that are all really aiming to contribute to the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. And one last point I would like to make is that even though the project is now coming to an end in about a month, by the end of June 2023, we at the SciChem Secretariat, together with UNEP and our partners, are also planning to ensure the sustainability of our project results beyond the project span of this particular project. So for instance, within other projects that are currently being rolled out through JEF or SciChem, we're really aiming to implement the cool tools and guidance already developed in other projects and following that through with pilot projects going forward. And I'd be happy in the Q&A later if there's any questions. We can also dive, go a bit deeper on that end if there's any appetite to do so. And on that note, I'm already coming to my end, and I would like to thank you very much for listening, and happy to answer any questions. And I believe back to you, Emanuele.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Robert, and concise and dense and to the point as always. This definitely helps in putting things into perspective and into context, which is always very useful when we talk about a certain publication, to make sure that the overall picture becomes clear as well to all the participants. I think it's also very welcome the link that you made to ongoing initiatives, and also a bit of an outlook on what might come next, and invite, of course, to all different types of stakeholders to get in touch, ask questions as well, of course, during the course of the webinar, to see how this could be brought forward all together. Thank you very much again, Robert. And now I would like to go to Sonia, Professor Dr. Sonia Valdivia, Scientific Director of the World Resources Forum. As I mentioned before, Sonia will be providing more information regarding the actual publication, what are the results and lessons learned. So over to you, Sonia. Maybe you want to start first with an introduction about the WRF, in case we have people not familiar with us in the webinar as well.
Thank you, Emanuele. So I need to share the slides, right?
Yes.
Okay. And 1 second, because okay. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you also, Robert, for this background information that is very helpful in order to understand from where we are coming from when we are coming. And with this, I would like to briefly highlight the mission of the World Resources Forum. Our non-for-profit organization aims to tackle the issues on sustainable resource management, focusing on sectors such as electronics. This is a key sector, a key area, WRF. And with this, our ultimate goal is to contribute to the well-being of the societies within the planetary boundaries. So our organization is a platform that supports dialogue among the key actors in the society, policymakers, business representatives, academia. And with this, we promote the adoption of solutions, of findings. And with this presentation, we are contributing in the same line of our mission. So with this, my presentation is about the key findings and lessons learned from the Eco-Innovation Electronics Supplement. And I will tackle the main findings and introduction on the companies that attended, that participated in the pilot. Focusing on the target audiences first, bear in mind that we address with a supplement on electronics on 2 main groups. One group are the consulting teams, can be individuals or companies, but also areas in the company that, for example, are in the departments of sustainability and innovation, marketing, purchasing, strategic teams. So this supplement talks to these personnel, to these groups. Along the presentation, after a brief introduction, I will describe the pilots, the 6 companies that were participating, and the findings that we got after the participation, and at last, an outlook on where we are looking at in future. The supplement on eco-innovation for electronics bases on the handbook on eco-innovation. This is the umbrella document that provides the framework for implementing eco-innovation in any sector. So the work done in the supplement was to tailor this general framework to the sector of electronics, considering, of course, the particularities. And with this, for example, in the framework, it's worth noting and worth reminding that we have 6 phases, starting with the preparation, setting the strategy, then talking about the business model. Based on that, building a roadmap, then of course the implementation part, which is key, which is that will deliver us with findings, results, and then perhaps a bit similar to what we know as a plan, do, act, check cycle. We continue with the review and come back for refining and improving the processes of implementing eco-innovation. In this work, there are about 30 templates or sources, of documents and fact sheets that you can use for when implementing eco-innovation that are very helpful along this journey. Electronics is a growing sector with a very fast pace, and only looking at the revenues from now until 2030, by the way, 2030, when the SDGs should be achieved, the Sustainable Development Goals should be achieved, there is a growth of 50%. But since it's based on revenues, it's not about quantities of products, because more and more we see that products are getting cheaper. For example, the number of products, also new markets that are emerging could be well doubled. So this is a very big and a very steep growth of this sector that needs to be acknowledged. And with this, the production of waste, of e-waste and materials that could be recycled probably if then policies and circularity management systems are in place. Based on a number of experiences and projects and studies that we have undertaken at WRF and also conducted by partners, we identified 4 main components in electronics. We talk about the microchips, for example, that are placed in printed circuit boards. Then we have plastics that are in many types of electronics. Here is just a symbol of one type of plastic, ABS. Cables is another component, and the lithium-ion batteries that are more and more in more different types being placed in these products. So we have now smaller sizes, bigger ones, but the group in itself is a very big part of the electronics products. Why is it important to know the components? Because when trying to assess eco-innovation, eco-design, and the measures that are proposed, this should target the components along the value chains of each of them. The companies participating in the pilot that were conducted between 21 and 22 are 6 companies and in 2 countries, Colombia and Peru. We targeted SMEs, small and medium-sized companies. Only one of them is a larger one, that is MAVE. You will hear from them in the next minutes. Maybe to quickly go through the companies, we have Compumax, that is a computer assembly company. There will be a 1-minute video that will be shown after the presentations. Grupo Intersys, that is a micro electronics company that works on repairing, refurbishing electronic devices. This, while Compumax is in Colombia, Grupo Intersys business is in Peru. Medisonic is electronic medical equipment retailer based in Peru, which also does maintenance and repairing work. These are larger equipment and for the health sector. There you have business to business, for example, relationships compared to the previous ones that have a hybrid approach. So targeting end consumers, but also business consumers. Consultoría Diseño y Climatación is a Colombian company and develops air conditioner solutions. It's very much focusing on the design of solutions and energy efficiency. Mabe is a refrigerators producer, and they have different facilities in Latin America. So we cannot say that it's only based in one country. They will present themselves later. PC Check is a refurbisher in Colombia, so they will also be present today with us. So why these companies were selected in this region? The region was targeted as an emerging region where you could have the small the SMEs more prominently, but also the ones that are not the main producers of the components or designers of components. So they were in, we would say, in the middle of the value chain in a growing situation, and that would also require addressing innovations. They will need, they are facing challenges on regulations, on emerging requirements if the market is outside for exporting products, for example. So this made this region interesting, and that's why we started with these 6 companies. So along the implementation of the electronics, the innovation phases on electronics, the life cycle perspective was considered. So there was a mapping on the life cycle stages. Along this, also the mapping of the stakeholders that are relevant, that were relevant for each case, for each company. So in the life cycle of electronics, you start with the raw material extraction, critical raw materials, in this case, are relevant. The components production and assembly, then we have the use phase that can be, we identified that most products of the companies that went through the pilot were delivered to the local markets. Some products are going beyond the countries, are being exported in the region. Maybe Mabe can explain about that, but mainly the target was the local market. And then there are options for repairing, refurbishing, the collection, recycling, and of course, then going back to the remanufacturing in some cases. So in a nutshell, the hotspots identified in electronic companies, this is a summary really of all the findings that were identified during the piloting, are the following. So we understood that energy efficiency and CO2 emissions monitoring is a key issue, but that was and had a lot of potential for improvement, and that was not that advanced yet in the companies. The management of chemicals of concern was another aspect. SciChem there contributed enormously with guidance, and also with emerging findings, for example, on regulations that are upcoming, and other requirements from the international markets. Also, metrics for circular economy, meaning that although the potential exists, companies were not aware about their situation on circularity, how the materials, how the components were kept in the cycle, in the circle of the materials flow, and not being lost as waste, for example. Supply chain risk management, especially due to COVID times, where we all experienced this disruption in the supply chain. It was a very critical aspect at the moment, and especially because we implemented the pilots during the COVID time. For us, it was also a challenging exercise. And the packaging management, because you may remember, you may visualize that whenever we buy electronics, we receive also together a huge packaging product to protect the device, but we wonder sometimes about the material or the volume, and these are questions that were raised. The management of extended producer responsibility targets, because in some countries, for example, in Colombia especially, there is already an extended producer responsibility program with targets that need to be observed timely, and this is something that was not fully under control sometimes, and the financial innovation. This is linked to business models that could potentially emerge from this exercise. We go to the next. Then this is also to give an example of the chemicals of concern contained in some devices. To be very specific on one example, for this group of products like computers, laptops, mobile phones, tablets, and the plastic casings, I mean the plastic components, flame retardant is a key chemical of concern contained. There are now regulations, there is more guidance, and this is something that needed to be better observed, monitored in the companies, for example, in the pilots that we worked with. And the circular business model patterns, we started assessing the possibilities for each company based on the proposal made by Accenture in 2014 and adopted by UNEP in the UNEP Eco-Innovation manual, where you have five patterns of business models. The first one is on circular supplies, meaning the company tries to use materials that have a better circularity rate, we could say, like recycled materials, for example. In pattern 2, there is a more active participation. This is where companies themselves promote the refurbishment, the recycling internally or with a partner, with a supplier. The pattern 3 is about promoting eco-designing towards extending the life of the products. The 4 is more participatory, where you have the value chain actors participating, like suppliers, but also consumers, in order to contribute to solutions, but also to enhance the circularity, for example, or energy efficiency. And the pattern 5 is really about rethinking the product, not only as a product, but as a service. The final, the ultimate goal of the product is the service that it provides. And if there would be new business models for this case. With this, I can show the business models that have been agreed by the companies or addressed by the companies to some extent. The most expanded or disseminated models are the one in product life cycle, product life extension, and product as a service, because all companies agree that with the measures introduced, there was the potential and the extension of the product life cycle could be achieved. That was a good finding, a positive finding. The product as a service as well, because this meant going into new business models and, for example, the leasing of products that allowed this. Also to enlarge the market size, their market base, the customer base, and going through business-to-business relationships a bit further. These were the two business models that were interestingly, positively welcomed and introduced in several cases. Less, we would say, the resource recovery, because that meant more joint cooperation with the suppliers, and for the period that we were working, 6 to 8 months was too short. With the next slide, that is almost the last, the learning from the pilots, eco-innovation opportunities identified focus more on the on-site work and on the downstream value chain actors rather than on the upstream. That was obvious because the scope of influence upstream is minimum. Smaller companies can barely even talk to suppliers in Asia, for example, which are much larger companies. Another finding was about, indeed, the opportunities of growing requirements internationally, not only the ones that we may already know, ROS, REACH, regarding chemicals of concern, but now, for example, the recently approved Critical Raw Materials Act in Europe. So these are opportunities, and we need to align, slowly as an electronic company. Another finding, the smaller the companies, the more challenging becomes the resources available for eco-innovation products. That is a reality. So we need to be mindful of that. The data management culture is also an area where there needs to be more attention, because in general, a lot of data was needed, but although the data is available, there was no organized structure for this, and it took a lot of time, maybe sometimes waste time, waiting for data that should be available for monitoring purposes, not only for the pilots in general, that is useful input for monitoring any type of processes. And training was essential for success. There is a resource that will be copied in the chat on responsible plastics recycling that you might find useful. And with this, the example provided in the supplement is about a fictional case, Silicon Latina's pathway, where you can see that for 2 products, refrigerators and flat panel displays, the framework of eco-innovation was implemented following 2 business model scenarios, one focusing on eco-efficiency, maybe less ambitious than the second one, that was on user-centered electronics. You can find this in the supplement, fully developed. And as a result of these 2 models, we would have that by applying a more efficient measures, you generate clear savings, less energy consumption, CO2 emissions, of course, and the change or the consideration of chemicals of concern that are allowed, that are used under controlled conditions, and or maybe prevented. I mean, not always chemicals of concern are needed for certain products. In the case of flame retardants, based on the business model on user-centered electronics, a higher, more ambitious approach was taken, and for this, it means that screens, for example, use recycled and recycled plastics. So we have then, for example, as an indicator, 80% of recycled plastic contained at the end. And we could also think of the use of Internet of Things for smart devices that would measure on real, at the moment, what the improvements, what the savings, what the consumption of this or other input is taking place, for example, energy. And in looking into the future, this supplement is useful for what is coming as trends. You have smaller devices and smaller products being produced. We have the packaging aspects that are being now improved. Other types of materials, we're talking about organic electronics, more advanced materials. 3D printing, and all this really can be considered when looking into the future through the application of eco-innovation measures. With this, I finalize my presentation, and with an invitation, a special invitation to look more, if you want to look more into the digitalization, electronics aspects, and sustainability, to visit our conference. We are addressing these topics through a number of events, workshops, and scientific sessions. And you are welcome to join us in September in Geneva or online. With many thanks. Over to you, Manuel.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much, Sonia. You may indeed stop sharing the screen. And thanks again for this very complete presentation, both about the context and the overall framework, so the outlook on the industry. I think you can just also stop sharing.
Yeah.
No problem.
Thanks.
No worries. So thanks again. I was mentioning for the complete outlook that you provided, both from an industry perspective and also, of course, about some of the main findings coming out of the supplement. As a reader, what I find really amazing in a way about this publication is how holistic it managed to be. So how the pillars used during the publication, which of course come from the UNEP manual for eco-innovation, really managed to provide a holistic view, starting from the value chain actors to all the different stages, and also including not shying away from more disruptive opportunities for changing business models towards innovative business models. So having different levels of ambitions, of course, indicating low-hanging fruits, but also looking at more disruptive business model changes, which is very important and ambitious. I think it provides a holistic perspective again on what's possible and what eco-innovation really can lead us towards. Okay, there will be more time later on then to go into details for questions. For the time being, I would like to give the word to Pablo Moreno, Director of Corporate Affairs at MABE. I see Gonzalo from PC Check also joined us. Gonzalo, we will give you the floor later on. Nice to have you with us. For now, Pablo, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, and good morning to all of you. I'm Pablo Moreno, as Emmanuel said, Head of Corporate Affairs here at MABE, and it's an honor for us to be part of this event. And well, if we please allow me to start off to talk about our company. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. Well, MABE is proud to be one of the leading manufacturers of household appliances in Latin America. So with a long history of innovation and excellence, we produce around 13 million units per year and have a brand presence in nearly 70 countries around the world. Our success is built on a strong commitment to quality, reliability, and sustainability, which is for us, by the way, the new concept of quality. So we're constantly striving to improve our products and processes in these areas. Oh, next, please. As you can see here, you have on the slide the production facilities, and our main production facilities located in Mexico, where we manufacture refrigerators, washing machines, and stoves. We also have important manufacturing facilities for these products in Argentina, Colombia, and Ecuador, as well as 2 component and compressor plants in Mexico. Our technology and design center is also located in Mexico. So you can see the distribution of how we cover Latin America to be able to produce for the region and for the world. Next, please. Our production plant in Manizales plays a crucial role in serving the Andean countries. We're talking about Colombia, Ecuador, Chile, and Peru, and also Central America like Costa Rica, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Nicaragua, with high quality household appliances and with over 1,500 employees. We produce around 3,800 refrigerators per day, and with 60% of them exported to these markets I just mentioned, and the remaining 40% produced to meet local demand in Colombia. So we are proud to announce that this is the plan selected for development of the eco-innovation pilot in electronics, which has been mentioned, and we're proud of being part of, which will allow us to migrate models and generate value for our stakeholders. Next slide, please. So Mabe's motivation to lead the eco-innovation project was focused on identifying opportunities that allow the company to add value to the business within the framework of migrating to sustainable production models and to generate, in turn, differentiation and recognition with its main stakeholders. So this is one of the main decisions why we have joined the eco-innovation project. Next slide, please. So within the framework of the proposed methodology, we were able to identify 5 critical points. And the first one, material recovery. As we manufacture home appliances, various materials are used, and often those materials can be recovered and incorporated into other production cycles of other industries. However, these materials are not necessarily being reused for the production of new refrigerators, which give us an important opportunity to recuperate certain materials like plastics, which were used in our products or in other electronic products, and that can be incorporated into production process. So under the collection schemes promoted by the Extended Producer Responsibilities regulations, together with the eco-design, there are countless opportunities that we can take advantage of recycled materials in parts and components of new equipment. The next critical point is the low-waste e-waste. As I mentioned before, the high potential for the use of materials and components present in electric and electronic waste is very significant. But the low culture of correct disposal of equipment at the end of the life cycle by the Latin American consumers is a critical factor that prevents high collection rates for equipment that have reached the end of the life cycle. So the informal sector largely collects these usable components, recuperating most of them into the production chains. However, this is a good news and this is bad news. Good news because they recuperate a large amounts of products. But however, the bad news as the special handling and differentiated components are discarded incorrectly, causing important environmental and health effects. The other critical point is material packaging. We found that the packaging of our refrigerators have a low recycle profile. So expanded polystyrene presents challenges to achieve its use and reincorporation in other production cycles. And reverse logistics costs are very high. The other critical point is relevant chemical substances of concern. There are substances present in some components, such as flame retardants, that need to be identified in order to reduce or to be able to replace them. So we are committed to identifying these substances and working with the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development to ensure that our products are safe both for consumers and for the environment. The other one critical point is the consumer communications. Basically, of course, to define the consumers. So communication strategies for sustainability criteria must be improved. The consumer should be better acquainted with the company's sustainability strategy and how products can contribute to a more sustainable future. That's a fact. And the last critical point that I mentioned is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now, especially when it comes with the extended producer responsibility. You can imagine that most of the families within Latin America have or consider household appliances because of the costs and because of the income of most of the Latin America families as a very high valuable product. So by the end of the life of these products, it's very hard to reach them and to make them realize that they have to be part of this disposal process. So this is one of the biggest challenges we're facing today. Next slide, please. Our sustainability model offers a framework to manage our daily activities, and it allows us to measure and communicate our performance in 3 dimensions: governance, environmental performance, and social well-being. So we are committed to promoting innovation and continuous improvement of our processes. And this is reflected in our product that offer a new added value, consistent with the expectation of our interest groups. Please, the next one. At Babi, we recognize that charting the path of tomorrow while solving the challenges we face today is not an easy task. However, we are enthusiastic about embracing sustainability, not as a destination, but as a route through which we will strengthen our capacities to innovate, collaborate, and act towards the search for new balances. So we believe in a principle of competitive adaptation that reflects its effects in a new social, environmental, and governance value beyond our products. So as part of Mavic cultures, we are empowering the top talent regardless of their personal identity. We are creating positive impact to the environment and to the society. We are part of the digital age, optimizing income and developing new businesses. Next slide, please. Within our steps towards our goal, we recognize here the importance of using recycled materials in the production of our appliances. And we're collaborating with waste management companies to identify viable alternatives for plastics and rubber. Our research has shown that high-impact polystyrene can be recuperated into other parts of the new refrigerators, as shown in the technical sheet presented on this slide. Sorry to be such a little slide, but here's where we have specific technical data related to this matter. When it comes to e-waste low rates, as part of our commitment to extended producer responsibility, we have designed a corporate model to propose strategies aimed at increasing the collection and the proper disposal of household appliances waste. So since 2014, we are part of Red Verde, which is translated to Green Cross, that has led the charge in promoting environmentally responsible disposal and management of this waste. So moving forward, we will work alongside Red Verde to strengthen collection mechanism and support initiatives that promote proper disposal of e-waste. So please, next slide. We have here our steps towards our goals. So when it comes to materials, packaging, here we have, sorry, but here is, we recognize that our packaging has a low recycle profile. I'm sorry, my English is a little bit rusty. Sometimes I find hard to find the technical correct words. So our packaging has a low recyclability profile. I hope that's the way you say it. So we are committed to changing that. So our internal workshops have allowed us to evaluate the recyclability profiles of other packaging materials and access to cost effectiveness of changes. So we also conduct life cycle analysis and evaluate the use of alternative materials to improve the recyclability profile of our packages. So when it comes to substances of concern, we understand that the potential environmental and health impacts of certain substances presented in our products, such as flame retardants, is important, as I mentioned to you prior to this comment. So basically, as I mentioned, we're identifying these substances and working to reduce and to replace them. When it comes to consumer communication, we recognize the importance of communicating our sustainability strategy and criteria to our customers. So we're in the process of deciding communication strategy that will highlight the sustainable attributes of our products, using the UNEP guide as a reference. So by doing so, we hope to promote consumer awareness and encourage sustainability consumption. So basically, this is what we have encountered, and this is the experience that we have had working in this UNEP's very important project. And I thank you very much for your attention. Sorry for my rusty English, but I hope everything was clearly understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pablo. It was absolutely more than clear understood. And thanks again for a very complete presentation, which is very useful in making this shift from theory to practice, right? To see how you've been applying the supplement, how you've been really implementing these guidelines into your business. And it's very interesting to see the perspective of a leading manufacturer as Mabe and the steps that you're taking. I think there are questions coming in the chat as well for you later on. I have some questions myself, but that's something that we could do shortly after. For now, I would like to see whether Gonzalo or Juan from PC Check made it to the panel. It's quite early in Colombia, so of course we can always have last minute inconveniences. But Juan and Gonzalo, if you are in the audience, please ask for a panelist or join us directly through the link. Maybe let's give a couple of minutes to that. Going to Sonia. Sonia, we have another company who was a pilot company who was not able to join us today. That's Compumax. Maybe if you want to share a couple of words, you already before gave a presentation about different companies, but maybe if you can share a couple of words about what did Compumax did in the context of the project, what was the pilot about?
Yes, thank you. Compumax presented in the slide among the 6 companies that conducted the pilot is a computer assembly one. In Colombia, a well-known company, and through the process, they strengthened the implementation of a certification scheme. This is a certification called IPIAT. There are very few ones for electronics. This is one of the well-known ones that allow them to better manage some of the hotspots that were mentioned for the companies. For example, chemicals management is among them, energy efficiency as well, among others. And the 1-minute video that was provided by them that we could show gives some details or some bullets about the main aspects of the IPIAT certification. I think we could show it. It's only 1 minute.
Perfect. This was thanks a lot, Sonia, for the introduction. Of course, it's a pity we don't have Compimax today with us. The video was without sound, so despite the fact that it always happens in webinars that the sound doesn't come, this time was actually without sound in the first place. It was probably a bit fast in the final slide as well, but I think one element that we can take from it is, again, the holistic dimension of the certification, how many different aspects are being included in there. Okay, I don't see PC Sheikh being able to join, neither Gonzalo nor Juan, which of course is a pity, but we will then move on, if hopefully a bit more time for the discussion. In case then Gonzalo and Juan can come, we can still involve them directly in a sort of Q&A. Maybe one question then back to you, Pablo. There is something that came in the Q&A chat from Mabe. From Derek Lukpat, who has been asking, as a former executive in the Caribbean region, whether Mabe will be looking to transition to more durable appliances, service-based business models, and reusable crates. Maybe linking this question to your presentation, if I may, you covered different aspects. What is, let's say, of the different circular business models, opportunities as well, what is the one that you are currently investigating or you find with highest potential at Mabe? So it's product as a service, for instance, something that you are exploring or something that you are trying to implement?
Well, thank you very much, Manuel. Well, basically, at this moment, within this specific topic, one of the biggest challenges we're facing is the extended producer responsibility at the most, you know. As you can see in Latin America, the extended producer responsibility is happening very fast. Right now, actually, we're negotiating with 7 governments throughout Latin America, trying to establish a very important paradigm. Even though every country has the possibility to make their own laws according to the way they see things in each country, when it comes to EPR, we must let the governments know that instead of being a national interest to be regulated, it has to be a regional effort to regulate it. If we do not make a model or a harmonized extended producer responsibility model throughout the Latin America region, and each country makes their own models, unfortunately, we cannot see good news out of this. We need the region to get together and to harmonize, not to make it exactly, but just to harmonize this topic, so we can work as a region and we can see that this is a necessity, so extended producer responsibility can happen as we believe has to happen in the future. So basically, this is one of the main challenges we are facing right now, Manuel, together with the challenge of how to make awareness in the Latin American consumer. As I mentioned before, the perceived value of household appliances is very high because of the income, unfortunately low income, that most of the Latin America's families gain. So because of this, the high value doesn't help us to allow them to see their contribution by giving to all the people that are taking part of the EPR challenge back the products. And if EPR doesn't happen in a very solid way, we believe this is going to compromise the circularity process, because we need proper disposal of materials to be able to manage through eco-design the circularity and getting back these parts and components to manufacture new products. I don't know if this could highlight a little bit the importance of where we're working and these two challenges that you mentioned to you, Manuel.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Pablo. This is definitely a good part of the discussion, and this harmonization, the need for harmonization, or what an important play the roads is clearly a key component, I think, in really moving the industry forward. I see Gonzalo seems to be in the panel. Gonzalo, I don't know, maybe we're getting a bit out of time for the whole presentation, but if you want to share a couple of remarks with the experience from PC Check, this would be an excellent opportunity. There seems to be persistent technical problems. Gonzalo?
Yeah, we have Gonzalo is here with me. I'm gonna join the presentation with Gonzalo. My name is Juan Aramillo. Okay. Hello.
Now, hi, Juan. Welcome to the webinar. As we mentioned, maybe we're a bit late with the full presentation now, that we are running out of time, let's say slowly. But maybe just from your side to hear a bit more on the informal side, what does PC Check do? So what are your activities and how did you get involved into this pilot for eco-innovation?
Basically, we're a company that focuses its all the handling of the material on the reuse part. We started as a company fixing equipment, and we evolved towards opening more and more and developing the business, opening more opportunities for equipment to get into the circular economy. Our idea is to get equipment to last longer. Yeah, right now technology is programmed to be obsolete in a very short time. So our main concern in the company is to make those equipment last longer. We have innovative procedures. We have developed some technologies. We have very specialized labs that allow us to fix equipment, to put equipment back in the market. Okay, that was our main objective in the company. Our last option is to dispose equipment. That is basically something that we don't like to consider at all. If we have to reuse, what we do first is take equipment into the company. We sort it. We see what's still valid to be in the market, and we do our best effort to put it back in the hands of people who need it. Our technology, we have different projects, and some of the equipment that cannot be reused, we use it as raw material for new processes. For example, with the plastic, we have developed a process where we put the plastic back in the market. We process it, we sort it, we process it, and we put it back as a raw material. But that is our second option. Our first option, as I mentioned before, was to reuse the whole equipment. If reusing the whole equipment is not possible, then we go ahead and try to reuse some parts of it. If we have to do electronic repairs, configuration, or we have to change some parts of the equipment, we go ahead and do that. We have some stock of those materials and parts that we collect from equipment that comes to our facility. If we cannot fix it, if the equipment is obsolete and cannot be reused, then we go ahead and take it apart and use it for recycling. For example, we have different projects and within the company. For example, with the plastic, as I mentioned before, we process it and for reuse as a raw material for new products. We have a project with batteries. We extend the battery from laptops, cell phones, We have the equipment, we have the technology. We do that with all the batteries that come in, we test it. And if we see the possibility to extend their life, we do that. We have a special lab for that. And that's basically our main objective in the company, is to extend every electronic equipment that comes in, and we see a possibility to get it out on the market again. That's the main idea. Yeah, economically, socially, and environmentally, that's what we do. Yeah, we are a company, we're certified. We have recently got the B Corp certification. So that was something that we make our best effort to. We have a bunch of certifications right now: the R2, the ISO 9000, 45,000, and 14,000, and those allow us to have a standard process for everything that we do in the company. And circularity for us is that extend the life of a product that comes in, of the equipment that comes in. Our first option is reuse. If we cannot reuse the whole equipment, we reuse parts. If we cannot reuse parts, we reuse the materials as raw material for new processes. Disposal is our last option.
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Juan. I think it's very interesting to hear your perspective completely at the other side of the value chain compared to Mabe, and really your role of trying to save resources, which admittedly in such a world which has been predominantly linear is quite a hard job. So to keep as high as possible on the value retention hierarchy, I can imagine is quite hard. And anytime you have to make a step lower from the old device to components to materials, it must be also quite painful from your side, where of course the main objective you have is really to keep resources at the highest value possible. So first of all, thanks a lot for your account of what you do, and also congratulations for this work, which is something that we often talk about circularity as a matter of design, but of course, with such a huge amount of linear products around, your work is absolutely essential, and proving also the value of the transition, and also the economic, social, and environmental value you can take out of that. Thanks a lot, Juan. Also, due to the technical problems, thanks for being with us. Hopefully, in case some questions come, then we can come back to you quickly or for some final remarks.
Perfect.
There are a couple of questions that have been coming through the chat. There is also, I think, Carlos, who would like to, Carlos Hernandez in the audience. We will answer some of the questions that came through the chat in a little bit. Carlos, if you want to share some experiences, maybe I would ask you kindly to keep it quite short, given that we don't have too much time, but please go ahead. You should be, you should have the opportunity to speak right now. Carlos, can you hear us? Doesn't seem Carlos is hearing us right now, so maybe if he comes a bit later. But in the meantime, then let me go to one question asked by Alodia Ishengoma in the chat from Tanzania. She's a member of Spring Loop Cooperatie, Netherlands. And the question, maybe I can ask Robert, was asked what Alodia asked, what are the selection criteria for companies, and is there anything planned to be done in East Africa as well?
Can you repeat that question, please? Sorry again.
Please, Robert.
Great, thanks. So I thought Gonzalo wanted to come in, or Juan actually. Yeah, great question. Well, there's a few things. So first of all, in terms of selecting companies or SMEs for eco-innovation, let's all keep in mind that the eco-innovation methodology was really developed for SMEs in emerging economies to really diversify and develop sustainable business models. With regards to East Africa, we currently have a project, and I can put that in the link, called the INTEX project, which stands for, and sorry for the long title, Innovative Business Practices and Economic Models in the Textile Value Chain. And we're piloting that project in 3 African countries, in Tunisia, Kenya, and South Africa. And here again, with our implementing partners on the ground, we selected, I think, more than 32 SMEs in the textile sector, though, to help them really diversify their sustainable business models. In addition to that, we also did some recent reports on the circular economy status, first of all, in Latin America region, and that was also part of this project, and I can put the link to that report in the chat if useful. And we're also doing some global work on electronics in the African region that was recently reported in Nigeria. So there's quite a lot of resources out there, but in short, to come back to the question is, yes, for eco-innovation, we always try to select those companies. And I think what Pablo mentioned as well, I mean, I really enjoyed, Pablo, what you mentioned in terms of your way forward, the benefits you're seeing, the commitment to sustainability. I think we're at this point when we speak about innovation. Innovation can only be considered innovation if it is based on sustainability. If it is not based on sustainability, I don't think we can consider this an innovation. And this is really what eco-innovation is all about, to make this crystal clear to the companies. I think we all know change is not easy. How can we get management, top management, employees all be willing to change, to embark on the journey where we need to show them the benefits? We need to show them it's profitable, but we also need to show them that is the only way forward to stay competitive, to stay resilient, to stay also protective against future shocks like COVID-19. I think this is the only way forward. And this is what we believe at UNEP with the eco-innovation methodology. For simplicity, when you hear eco-innovation, and I'm almost done, Emanuele, sorry, eco-innovation is the same as sustainable business model innovation. So we're really looking at environmental, economic, and social innovations that we can really transform with an organization. And this is also referred to at times as shared sustainable value creation. How can we really ensure that there's a win-win in our shared value stakeholder network, that we can take everybody on that journey? And I think that's what we're seeing in particular in the electronics industry, through partnerships, through additional value that can be created, through reuse models, through repair models, through service business models. There's a lot of value that companies can really harvest before their products end up traditionally on the landfill or in disposals. I think that can only be really the last resort. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Robert, again for highlighting the importance of this work and also where it comes from and what are the main objectives. Maybe just going to Pablo quickly. Pablo, there are a couple of questions to you in the chat about more specific issues. So I don't know whether we have the time to discuss them now, but there is one question from Luis asking whether MABE is considering eco-labeling and certifications for your products. So this is related to the communications problem that you mentioned before, or the challenge. So whether you're thinking of adopting certification like TCO or EPAT. And also Carlos asked whether you have specific proposals for the recovery of foams that may contain HCFCs. I'm not very strong with acronyms in this case, but perhaps this is more clear to you. Maybe if you have some specific initiatives in this field, so for the recovery of foams or for the eco-labeling, or otherwise if you want to point out any other specific initiatives you're working on in the scope of the project.
Would you like me to start with the answer, Emmanuel? Or yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much for this important question. Yes, eco-labeling is definitely part of our main project of sustainability. And by the way, eco-labeling would be the stage where we put together all the efforts within all the impacts we are managing through sustainability. So let me give you an example. Today, a refrigerator has an energy label, as everybody can see. So as you know, in the future, this energy label is also going to have other type of data. On one side, we're going to also have a data that is going to show how much contamination or emissions were given to produce the refrigerator. So together with the energy consumption, there's also going to be another data in the label that is going to tell you what percentage of this product is being recycled. So as an example, put together, this is going to give a new data for the consumers, for them to decide what to buy. So basically, everything we're doing is going to end up in this eco-labeling that is going to be given to the public for them to make the decision. So as we progress as a company and as consumers create capacity on understanding and being more sensible of this, and not only consumers, also financial identities, because as you know, the financial identities are now pushing very hard sustainability as part of what you have to meet to be able to be part of the financial portfolio. So most of the interest publics are going to be using this eco-labeling as a reference of all the efforts we're doing on energy efficiency, on management of chemical substances, on management of extended producer responsibilities, emissions, and most important, product excellence, which is one of the most recent tendencies that are starting to be regulated in Mexico, and that we're, of course, very interested in working with. I don't know, Emmanuel, if this answers the question.
Absolutely. From my perspective, hopefully also answers those who asked them, but I think it's definitely providing some interesting elements. I see Sonia, you raised your hand. Thanks a lot, Pablo, again for the insightful information. Sonia, please.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Also, time is running. I really see a number of questions that are very expressing interest on next activities, outlook, what's coming. And what I think is important also to recall is that we have a number of projects that have been conducted in the past, even in countries that maybe now are not the focus of these pilots, were not the focus of this process, but countries like India was targeted in the past, South Africa is now Ghana. So we have Egypt, etc. So I think that if you are interested in more insights about these experiences in other countries and continents on electronics, on this end-of-life waste recycling techniques, please, you can come to us and we can give you more guidance. And this is one point. On another point, there is the question open on the chemicals of concerns and how in the pilots we could see meaningful impact if these are SMEs. We are talking about chemicals of concern where these are not produced in Colombia, nor in Mexico, nor Peru, but in bigger Asian countries, and they are used by these large manufacturers there. So indeed, this is an issue that was highlighted, that the scope of control on these downstream upstream companies is minimum. However, the impacts on the organizations that today presented their cases and downstream recyclers, consumers, exist. And this is a key issue that we want to address. By knowing what we have, by communicating with the vendors, by trying to get the information, this is a next step. And we encourage you, recycling companies present, electronic companies present, to do that, to continue communicating with the upstream suppliers and ask for this very important information.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sonia, for highlighting indeed the relation with other previous and ongoing projects, and also with the other supporting activities such as trainings in this field. Maybe Gonzalo or Juan, there is one question for you, maybe also as a way of giving you some of the final remarks from your side. There is Brenda Lopez, who has been asking whether if you have insights regarding the demand for repaired equipment. So is there high demand for repaired equipment? Do you see any changes compared to when you started?
Yeah, when we started this project, people were very scared about using used equipment. Normally, people would require new equipment. Companies were not very happy with us repairing equipment and putting it back in the market. But nowadays, they understand, everyone understands it's very important. It's a very important practice. And every day we see more demand. We're even looking at big companies asking us to help them reuse. The government is setting up the law, the legislation. It all helps the reuse of equipment. For example, in Colombia, all the legislations for all the post-consumer programs, they give like extra points for if they take into consideration reuse of equipment in the goals they have every year. So if a company achieves a goal and plus they have some reuse equipment, they get extra points. It's something that is becoming more and more important because people are getting more aware of the importance of that, of prolonging the extending the life of electronic equipment. Yeah, and that is something. Okay, it gets it's more popular between the people to buy used equipment especially because of the quality of the equipment that we put back in the market. It's not only a simple repair, it's a whole process that takes into consideration electronic configuration, cosmetic repair. So what we put back in the market, it has a very high standard, and that people are very happy buying that kind of equipment again.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Juan. And indeed, when that's also a bit of contrasting the misconception about repair, refurbished, and of high quality, especially following certain processes, the new device can be. And that's an important stigma, so to say, that to fight and to show the quality and reliability of such products. So it is encouraging anyway to see how the embracement from the public, from consumers is also increasing. Okay, we're getting to the end of our webinar. It's 1 minute. Maybe I'm going to give just the final remarks to Robert and Sonia. Just to conclude, I mean, Robert, the chat now it's coming more and more. We have news from India, Pakistan. For sure, it seems like this publication was in high need. So it's clearly something which was not covered before. There is still lots of support needed, perhaps in implementation, in training. What are the next steps that you envision from a UNEP side to really further, again, the implementation of this publication, the all knowledge created in the project?
Thank you so much, Emanuele. I mean, something I would like to highlight, and I'm looking also at the time, but briefly, is that what I love about the Eco-Innovation Electrolytic Supplement is it's really a timely, relevant publication. So it couldn't have arrived at a better time. I think many companies out there are in need of a strategic approach on how to implement sustainability, really by a phase-by-phase approach, starting from a macro analysis all the way to a micro analysis to understand where the hotspots, what do we really have to look out for, how can we really tweak our business models, how can we make them more sustainable and more circular. So I think it's really time that we have that resource out there, of course, free of use for everyone out there to really adapt that. And in case of comments or questions, I think, especially for the LAC region, you can always reach out to Sonia or even to ourselves to ask for further assistance going forward. In the future, I think what we've been doing, so under Jeff, there is a new project happening in the Asian region. I must say, though, the focus will probably be more on the textile sector, but I'm aware that under the electronics sector, under Jeff, we're currently publishing a report on the LAC region in Spanish and in English. So I would be happy to forward that to the entire group once we have published that. I think that also is speaking quite nicely to the manual and how we envision circularity in the future. But there will be further projects being rolled out. And I'm sure if there's maybe some kind of a expert list or communication way. I mean, Sonia, you already mentioned the conference that's happening later this year from WIF. I think that's also an extremely good opportunity to really connect with people and understand what is further happening down the line. And just once again, thank you so much. I mean, I've definitely learned a lot, especially from the companies as well, to hear their experiences. So many, many thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Also, my final words to really invite you to follow up some activities. I like very much the concept, the initiative for the community of practice, and I think this is a community. If you agree, please, you can subscribe to our communications, and then we will continue sending you news. We are involved in a number of electronics projects on frontier areas. For example, one project we are currently very strongly involved in is about electronics, disposable electronics in the health sector. This is another area, for example, where we try together within a consortium to push for circularity. And we realize that there is a lot of guidance and more experience, regulations probably also needed in this area. So with this, we invite you to follow ups. We invite you to connect with us when you have specific questions. We can guide you on our library or our hub of knowledge and expertise that we have for different countries. We were present in India, Egypt, etc., and we will continue producing. We are in the moment of translating, for example, key learnings from the Latin American region that were produced, reported in English into in Spanish. That means we will have new material in the local language as well this year and the next year. So we are already in a community, continue exchanging, and thank you very much, the companies, for your collaboration, for sharing, and we will also announce the website soon. Robert, we have to finalize this with the company's cases. I appreciate very much your participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonia, and thank you for, again, both to you and Robert for showing as well how open the door is for everybody who wants to be involved, and how much support is available from UNEP and WRF side in taking this further. And I think the ECHO manual, that's also a nice thing about this publication, and the supplement is not something that you read and then put aside, but something probably to keep on your desk while you're actually taking business decisions and discussing internally. So it's very applied and very useful to follow on a step-by-step basis. So it's definitely something that I'm sure will be useful for a long time for many organizations. Finally, thanks again to Juan and Gonzalo from PC Check, and Pablo and Andres from MABE. It was, as mentioned before, a wonderful privilege for us to have you here with us today, to learn from you, which of course is always the most important part, and to see what the implementation is actually on the ground, what challenges you face at different stages of the value chain, and as different companies, from larger corporates to smaller companies. So your experiences has been, the sharing of your experiences has been terribly enriching for us. Thank you again for being present today. And thanks finally to all the participants for having been with us for this 1.5 hours and some minutes more, for all the nice questions in the chat, all the engagement that you provided. Hopefully it has been useful and insightful to follow this webinar. And as Robert and Sonia mentioned, always feel very free and invited to follow up either with UNEP or with WRF for any activities related to this topic. Thanks again, and wish you a nice rest of the day or evening, depending on where you are, and we'll definitely be in touch soon again. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Regards, Sonia, Robert. Bye-bye, Emmanuel.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Gracias.
Bye.
Un buen día.
Buen día.
Igual.